Good morning. We realize we're the session between this group and lunch, so we're going to get started on time and dive into a great topic, which is relevant to anybody who owns a going concern or is in charge of developing people and making certain they stay current with technology. My name is Mike Alford. I'm the president of Marine Automotive, which is in Jacksonville, and I'm a member of the North Carolina Board of Transportation. Welcome to our session where we will be exploring the need for developing the skills and education of our future transportation workforce. Before we get started, we would like to take a moment. I know everybody's heard about this again, but it's my job to stay engaged, the Crowd Compass app, and just make certain that the Crowd Compass attendee hub, and again, our event is 2020 North Carolina Transportation Summit. Please feel free to complete our survey on the app during the session. We will also take questions from the audience for our panelists at the end of the session in a small enough room, so we'd welcome that interaction. You can also participate through social media by using the hashtag NC Transportation Summit. As many of you know, it's an incredible challenge planning for the future in the face of many unknowns. So many technological disruptions, many that we've heard about last day and this morning include drones, self-driving cars, electric vehicles, and power storage, will influence the need for specific skill sets and education in the future generations of transportation industry professionals. What will be expected of the workforce of the future to ensure the best experience in transportation despite these uncertainties? To help us understand how we can develop these workers and leaders we will need for the future, we have John Downing, Vice President of Continuing Education at Cape Fear Community College, and Walt Warren, Corporate Recruiter of Gregory Pool Equipment Company. John Downing has served as Dean of Continuing Education at Cape Fear Community College since April 2018, originally joining the staff as Director of Workforce Training and Development in August 2017. He was named Vice President of Continuing Ed in November 2019 and oversees economic and workforce development, public safety, academic and career readiness, and community enrichment programs. John has also been an apprenticeship consultant for the North Carolina Department of Labor in the Triad area for 14 years. Please join me in welcoming Cape Fear Community College Vice President of Continuing Education, John Downing. John?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How are we today? It's a pleasure to talk with you about transportation. Cape Fear Community College is way at the end of the state. We're called the Port City. You should come and see us if you haven't already done it. We like visitors. We had a visitor a few years ago. Her name was Florence. We didn't really care for that visitor, but we welcome all of you to come on down and spend some money with us. Transportation is such an important part of our area. We spend a lot of time looking for students to train and training them in various areas. The community college system across the state has been responsive to training transportation employees. If you look at it for like the last 3 years, we have slowly ramped up our CDL training because there's a critical shortage of truck drivers. And we went from 1,500 truck drivers a year to we're now training 1,800 a year. Totally, in total for the last 3 years, we've trained over 5,000 truck drivers to respond to the industry's demand. And we still have more room to grow. More room to grow. We've slowly been ramping it up. There's a lot of costs associated with ramping that particular program up because it is expensive. We also are very responsive with our industry partnerships and our sector partnerships to offer diesel and automotive technician training. It is a growing area. Right now we're experiencing the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. Everybody is expanding. And so there's such great pressure to get the students that are available to work or the people that are interested in working in jobs. Everybody is competing with other industry groups. So what we're finding out is that only the industry groups that cooperate and form partnerships with their community colleges, with their local officials, the state, as well as all the employers, those are the ones that are getting the folks, because you have to communicate and articulate a clear message to these potential students about how they're going to work, what they're going to get paid, what they're going to learn, and what they're going to do. And they are very competitive now. They get on the internet and they see what other people are doing. So you do have to compete to get those students. We've experienced some growth this year in our enrollment. We're out there with partnerships, and we're looking at two groups. We're looking at folks that are entering the job market. So we've been out in middle schools and high schools talking about these jobs and getting these students lined up to come work with us because of the employers. And we're bringing the employers with us. The other thing we're doing is we're looking at folks that are underemployed. If you're making a lesser salary and you want to retread into an occupation that will give you a living wage, we're trying to orient you to those types of occupations so that you can thrive and stay in our area. But those are our potential students. And there are opportunities to engage the military folks. We have the largest military population in the nation here in North Carolina. And so any opportunity we have to engage those soldiers, Marines, and airmen to come and work in our area, it's a win-win. So I thank you for the opportunity to come here and look forward to answering some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. All right. I hope you. Now I'd like to introduce from Gregory Pool Equipment Company, Walt Warren. So Walt, please. Appreciate you joining us. Perspective from the corporate side.
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. I hate that Greg Pool himself couldn't be here, but I hate to say this, but I do just a little bit more than he does, and I know a little bit more about this. This topic is something that I've been fighting personally since I've been with Gregory Pool now for 13 years. It's an ongoing battle. It's not a fun thing, but it is job security, and I don't have a problem with that. But it does test us every day, and the opportunity to come here to talk to you guys and let you know exactly what it is we're looking for and the issues we're having is wonderful. And I'm so happy to see Cape Fear Community College here, because that's one of the colleges that we work with heavily and support. So it's good to see you. So what are we looking for? Let me give you a quick description of what it is we do and kind of people we're looking for. Guys like me, accounting people, no offense to anybody here, HR, marketing, sales, we can find those any day. It's the technicians that we're having a hard time finding. Right now, construction is our bread and butter. If you guys ride around Raleigh, I'm sure you'll see our equipment on the side of the road, as well as you'll see John Deere and Komatsu, but it's all yellow, which that's what really matters. We're looking for forklift technicians, truck technicians, bus technicians, generator technicians, and marine technicians. So we need a lot of techs working on a lot of different things. So the problem that we're experiencing is we're looking for two types of technicians. We're looking for those that have the experience, those that have at least 8 to 10 years plus experience, your Tech 2s, your Master Techs. And we're also looking for those who want to become technicians. They could be coming out of high school, they could be coming out of the community college system. We're looking for those people to try to bring them on board and train them. And that in itself is not easy. That is a challenge. The challenge with finding experienced technicians is talking them into leaving where they are. And things being the way they are right now, they are well paid, and you are hard pressed to talk somebody into leaving a position. So, like I said, I've only been here for 13 years. I understand prior in the 80s and early 90s that the times were different, that we had technicians that were lined up outside the door trying to get in. We had to push them away, and those days have changed. It's not like that anymore. I wish it was, but it's not. we're having to go out there and search, and not just in North Carolina. I've interviewed people all over the state, all over the country. I've interviewed people in Europe, Africa, South America. Times are changing, and we do everything and anything we can to try to get them to come on board. So some of the things that we're running into that I think that personally, in my opinion, that we need to work on is we're not pushed as much in high schools as it used to be. There's not as many automotive classes as there used to be. There's still some out there, don't get me wrong, but not what there used to be. Our current technicians that have children, if you go out and take a poll and you would ask every one of them, they are not recommending their livelihood or their career to their children. They're just not doing it. They want them to go to college. They want them to become a doctor, a lawyer, anything but a diesel technician. And that's because of the hard nature of the work. It is taxing on your body. And then we get into health. I mean, when I was getting at, these guys are working 8, 9, 10-hour days. And as much as we try to put safety first, as much as we try to make life easy for them, provide them everything they need to do their job, at the end of the day, you still have to turn a wrench. You still have to pick up stuff. And it can wear and tear on your body after a while. And we're seeing that the younger generation is just not as willing to go put in 30 or 40 years doing this type of work. No matter what we do to make it easier, it's an outside type job. The examples I just gave, these are things that we're facing every day, and there's no telling what we're going to have to face in the future. Now, this is not just a Gregory Pool problem. This is a worldwide problem. Caterpillar is fully aware of this. We have conferences every other week, telephone conferences, talking about what can we do to find these people, what can we do to try to improve our communication out there, to let people know we have jobs available. Caterpillar saw this coming years ago, a long time ago, which is why they initiated one of the programs we have called Think Big. Think Big is a program initiated mostly for students coming out of high school, but anybody can do it. It's based for us in Florence, South Carolina. It's a 2-year program where they go and they get an associate's degree in Caterpillar technology. It's an awesome program, The guys coming out of high school, they pretty much have a guaranteed job. Now, I graduated from state in '98. I did not have that luxury. I was looking. These kids are coming out, they're starting school, so they go to school for 8 weeks, and they're learning nothing but diesel technology. They'll take some English classes and psychology and some of those classes, but they'll do that for 8 weeks, and then the next 8 weeks they come back and they work at the branch. They do a hands-on mentoring type program. They do this for 21 months. They get paid while they're doing this, or at least while they're doing the working part. And when they graduate, they're a full technician. They have a job. Their benefits kick in immediately. We're starting them out at $20 an hour. I did not start out at $20 an hour when I graduated from state. Maybe some of you did, but I didn't. Some of these guys are 19 and 20 coming out of school, making $20 an hour, plus anything over 8 hours in a day is overtime for these guys. So the money's there. So why do we have this problem? Why do we have such a hard time finding people to do it? Because there's so much money to be made. It just goes back to what we said earlier. It sounds great, it looks good on paper, and then when you get out there and you start doing the physical work, it's not what everybody wants to do. And especially the guys that go in field trucks. And they're out there by themselves, and they're having to do the work 2 o'clock in the morning on the side of a road. You guys have seen those work sites. So it's not easy. So the answer, I don't have a direct answer. What we're doing right now, the Think Big program, just like I mentioned, we're also working with all the community colleges, Wake Tech, Cape Fear Community College, Fayetteville Tech, Johnston Community College. We're providing them money, software, engines to look at, a little bit of everything. We're doing everything we can to help them, help themselves, and help find these people to come in and do this type of work. There's no magic bullet, not yet. I'm hoping that the tide turns. It's not going to change here where we are. Mr. Pool, a few months back, had the State of the Company address. He made a great statement. He said, I feel like we're in a bubble. I feel like that all the things that we have going on down here right now is just, we're busy. And we have a huge need, and I don't see it going anywhere. The other thing that I like to try is I try to draw people down to North Carolina. I mean, I'm born and raised Eastern North Carolina, Eastern boy. I love this state. I love the weather. It's not a hard sell. And so when you get a phone call, usually around this time of year, from somebody from North Dakota, and they're working in, you know, zero weather on equipment, it's not a hard thing to do. So in that aspect, we're lucky. We do have a selling point. It does make things a little bit easier, but we still have to get them down here. So that in itself is a task. As far as the hope, we're slowly spreading the word. We're starting with high schools, and we're working way up to community colleges, and then coming to events like this. And it's not just about our equipment being out there, us, Komatsu, John Deere, or anybody else. That's advertising, but it's got to the point to where we can't just live off of, say, for example, the pool name anymore. There's a lot of new people coming out here that never heard of the pools. And so they have no idea how long they've been around and what they represent and how important they are to this company, to this state. Some other things going on. If you guys have been in the news, you've seen. If you hear them, NASA does a lot of work with Caterpillar. And just for those of you who don't know, I've had high school students ask me before, does Greg Pool own Caterpillar? No, we don't. Greg does not own Cat. I compare to what we do to an automotive dealership. We sell and service equipment. We don't make it. We just hope you break it, and then we can fix it and provide the parts. So with that being said, there's a bright future for what we're doing. We're in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Eventually, Caterpillar is going to be on the moon and the Mars. I mean, we still got to dig holes, whether it's here or up there. When I started in 2006, we had 950 employees. Now we're up to 1,250. So we are growing, and we expect that number to continue to grow. Outlook, and some of this information you guys can go online and you can find yourselves, but the outlook as of from 2016 to 2026, the employment of diesel service technicians was set to grow anywhere from 9 to 10%. So, and it's going to go above that. So this is a huge need right now. It's a huge need, and we cannot find technicians fast enough. So I'll leave you with that thought. You're more welcome to go to gregorypool.com. You can get information about our company, about the Think Big program. My information is on there. I'm sorry if I went over my 10 minutes, but I'm more than happy to talk to anybody after this event, or any time for that matter, to go more in depth about what we do and what we're looking for and the problems that arise. It's what I get paid to do, so I enjoy doing it. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll start with some questions, and I'm gonna kick it off with you guys. So, Walt, I guess you mentioned 1,300 employees, 21 facilities, correct?
Yeah, there are 26 facilities.
26 facilities, okay. And then, so how many of those 1,300 employees are skilled technicians?
Roughly half.
And as you look forward, how do you see that role of a technician evolving or changing with the technology that is coming to Caterpillar? I'd be curious about that.
That's one of the problems we have as well, is the technology is changing so much. The computer systems, the onboard diagnostic systems, our forklifts, like I was saying earlier, they've moved to electric, so we're not using gas anymore. It's a problem for some of our older generations, being on laptops, and they're kind of stuck in their ways in some regards, and some are willing to learn and some don't, but that's one of the challenges we find. Now, on the flip side of that, the younger generation, it's not a problem. I mean, I think they're born with the cell phone in their hand. At least my kids are.
So, John, that raises a question for the role that you have in terms of staying current with, diagnostic equipment and technology on your side of the house in terms of preparing our students to be relevant for the marketplace. Can you touch upon that and how you guys source that equipment, and how do you stay current?
Well, absolutely. You know, when you start working on equipment, you break things. You know, it's just a natural order of things, and particularly when you're turning new students on things, whether it's driving a truck or trying to diagnose a motor. And as technology becomes more automated, you're right. You do have to have computers with softwares that will interface some site to tell you how to diagnose and troubleshoot a particular piece of equipment. And as that stuff becomes more current, you have to get that updated, and it's not cheap. So we rely on partnerships with like Gregory Pool and other folks to come in and help us out by donating that equipment or providing us at least a good price on it so that when we can purchase it to keep current. And it's critical. On the truck driving side, you know, you really, as most colleges, can't afford to buy spanking brand new equipment, but we can buy used equipment. Now, the problem with used equipment is as it's used, you use it, it's going to break. One program I had, I was telling earlier, we had a 6-truck fleet, and we had a 10-week, 400-hour course. The last week, I was down to one running truck. And so luckily it made it through. We've got all 6 back in action again and just bought one yesterday to add to the fleet. So we rely on our partnerships. We rely on looking for good used equipment that we can use. And then as new stuff comes up, if we can rely on our sector and industry partners to help us out to train those folks, it's a partnership. And between that synergy, we can keep current and make sure that the skill sets that our students are coming out with are valid. Thank you.
That's a great answer. One follow-up to that. Walt, on your technician recruitment, how many of like the current needs that you have to fill, how many of that will be folks that move in from other states that will add to the growth of North Carolina, if you will, versus recruiting from either our community college system or just organically from a North Carolina resident has the skill set you're after, and you grow that skill set?
The bulk of the technician positions are we pull those from just about anywhere and everywhere. We do a lot with the universities in North Carolina, so we and I hate to say this, I'm a state grad, but ECU has a awesome construction management program that Caterpillar supports, and we do too. And I'm trying to be funny, I'm kidding. ECU is a great school, but we do pull a lot of students from that program, and they come work with us on internships, and then when they graduate, come work for us in a sales capacity. Because it's not just about selling when it comes to, say, for example, our generators. We have engineers, electrical engineers that are out there selling it, and you're probably thinking, so what does the engineer have to do with selling a generator? Well, the engineers are able to go out and help a customer determine what kind of power package they need. So it takes a special person to be able to do that. And we have generator salesmen that, say, for example, work with Rex Hospital. They work with different schools, different community colleges. You mentioned the hurricane. Mr. Poole would send generators down to the beach. He sent them up to New York when the hurricane hit up there a few years ago. And we have to have those guys that can definitely understand what they're doing in power packages.
And Walt, before I turn it over to the audience, you were alluding to a company you guys are associated with that sort of artificial intelligence and pre-programming of technology with the equipment that you sell that will essentially do the work. And I'd like to hear more about
Saitec,
that.
yeah. Saitec is a company that is owned by Gregory Pool, Joe Blanchard for Blanchard Caterpillar at South Carolina, and also Ed Whisker, Carolina Cat, out of Charlotte. The office is based in Charlotte. They have office in Clayton as well. Saitec sells many different things, but one of the main products they sell is Trimble technology. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not, but Trimble technology has many, many different uses. One of them is, for example, if you look at a bulldozer, if you ever see a dozer and you look at the front, the blade of it, on both sides of the blade, there should be a cylinder-looking thing about the size of a big plate maybe. This cylinder, they go in and they survey the property prior to going in and grading it. And so the operator of the equipment can actually set it in the computer and just take his hands or her hands off of it and let the piece of equipment go, and it'll grade the property how it needs to be. They can shut the bulldozer down. They can let it sit there for a year, come back, turn it back on, and it'll pick right back up where it left off. It does have some military applications, dealing with the airborne and parachute drops and things of that nature. And there's some other things that is involved in too. But that's somewhat new with us. That is like, I guess, a sub-company of Gregory Pool, but something we do work on as well.
So the folks that operate that equipment, they have a different skill set than your legacy operators, if you will.
Well, the people that operate that equipment are trained by Saitec, the same way that anybody that buys a piece of equipment from Gregory Pool has to be trained by Gregory Pool to use that piece of equipment. So they train them on that. As far as being the complexity of it, I'm not 100% sure how difficult it is I'm not the complete authority on that particular subject.
Any questions? Yeah, please.
So, above and beyond your technicians, the welders, the computer people that's been worked on the instrumentations on these new pieces of equipment, it's not just shop technicians. Like I said, that's only half of your employees. The other half way beyond.
Yeah.
So you've got 1,200 employees, 600 of them technicians, but you've got another 600 that are support staff, like I said, welders,
Mm-hmm.
IT people. Because you can't go to a new piece of equipment now like you used to could and take a screwdriver and start it.
Yeah.
And go on from there, so that all your field techs are really high trained.
Yes, sir. They are. We don't. The others, I guess I fall in that category too. If you go on our website and look now, you'll see we have job openings for positions like that. It could be rental, sales. It could be administrative in nature. It could be have some credit positions available right now. We have all kinds of IT positions, but a lot of those positions they're kind of hit and miss here and there. Accounts payable, accounts receivable. Those positions are not that difficult to find. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Warehousers. It's one thing you mentioned. We have a lot of warehousers. I dread putting a warehouser position out there because I get hundreds of applications, which you would think that's not a problem, but you read through each application after a while, and it gets a little taxing. But welders, here and there. The biggest problem we have at Gregory Pool, honestly, is the lack of turnover in certain positions. We don't have it. I've been here 13 years and I'm still a rookie. A good friend of mine, Johnny Parker out of Fayetteville, passed away a couple of years ago. He had been with the company over 50 years. He had worked for all three pools. Knew Greg, the third when he was a kid. So you have people staying there for that amount of time in those specific positions is just not a high turnover rate compared to the technicians. And it's not so much do we have a high turnover rate. And one of the things I didn't mention, it's recruitment is a huge part of getting them on board. But now our fight has moved over to retention. So now not only are we trying to find them, but when we get them, I'm trying to fight to keep other companies from hiring these techs and people away from us. And not just technicians, but other positions. I lost a tech a few months back to a competitor for a $9 increase. That's life-changing. We can't compete with that. But we don't think he was at that $9 level. So we'll see what happens in the future. So does that help answer your question, I guess?
So I got it.
I'll defer to him.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is for Mike and for John. My name is David Rue. I'm the Executive Director for the North Carolina Transit Association. We represent 90 transit systems. We have 50 business partners. So I would hope that we could encourage sort of a bigger picture conversation John, I'm based in Wilmington, so I'd love to get on your calendar. I think there's an opportunity to create a public transit workforce pipeline for North Carolina. There are jobs all across that spectrum. That pool, no pun intended, is changing. But I do think that we could be an active partner in a conversation to really help with the economic impact of North Carolina. I believe the community colleges are best suited strategically to take on that opportunity. Not that we don't have a great university system, but we've got 90 systems that we are advocate for, from Murphy to Manio and everywhere in between. And there's a community college either in that community or adjacent to it. So just be curious about your thoughts about sort of a public transit workforce pipeline concept.
We have some experience working with statewide organizations in other industry groups, like the North Carolina Association of Electrical Contractors. They came to us recently and said, you know, we want to pilot a program. We want to tweak our training program, our apprenticeship program, so that we can get more utility out of our apprentices quicker and then get them in the workforce. So they piloted a program out of Guilford Tech, expanded to our area, and it's slowly going across all the chapters of that particular organization across the state. And they have many, many employers, and they employ a lot of, you know, electricians across the state of North Carolina. And so that's the idea. You know, you pilot what you think the program's going to be, and then you expand it to all the 58, and they adopt those standards to make sure that what we're turning out is what you as an industry group need, and that you get immediate gratification from the skill sets that these people bring to your workforce.
So just quickly, in public transit in 2018, our economic impact in North Carolina was $800 million. So that's a significant opportunity, I think, that's out there. So I'll catch you up after the session.
No, that's great. I guess you have an inventory of skill sets that you're after, and then what the demand curve it looks like going forward as well.
Right,
So.
but part of that is we need to have a series of partners that we can then collaborate with on the content side.
Thanks.
Great comment. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ellen Reckow. I'm a Durham County Commissioner. I'm also on the Durham Technical Community College Board. So I'm really interested in seeing a pipeline created into these good jobs that you're describing. Our governor has been promoting apprenticeship programs, and I'd be interested in discussing what you think as to where we are. As I understand it, the push is to get juniors and seniors in high school exposed to some of the very good jobs that we have, begin to get them educated and have credits available for them to get some experience even in high school at these jobs. And then they go on to community college. The state, if they are in an apprenticeship program, will pay for their tuition at the community college. And the idea is they're then getting education and work experience through the apprenticeship and finish with a good job. So could this model help with these jobs that you have, Walt? And is this a way to create a robust pipeline into these technical jobs? Because I didn't hear much discussion in either of your comments about working with apprenticeship programs.
Well, I'll be glad to address that one, since I used to work for the apprenticeship division for 14 years and set up programs all across this state. I can tell you that some of those programs work really, really well when you have the industry cooperating. And of course, when you are an apprentice, you are working for whichever company you got, so you get practical experience. Now, one of the things that I saw happen at Forsyth Tech and in Guilford Tech is that when they had the electricians program, for example, I'll use this, they also had automotive program. The apprentice would take the courses at the vocational high school, or if their high school was lucky enough to have one, they'd take that course and they would apprentice with a company, and they would leave work or leave school, go to work, and then they would get those practical skills while they're working. Now, in the electrician's apprenticeship, when you took the full electrical program there in high school, you were automatically grandfathered into the apprenticeship program for the electrical contractors, and you'll come into that program as a year 2 apprentice of a 4-year program. And then they would be working with a company, and some of those folks that I saw apprenticed with, say, for example, Salem Electric, are still there as a supervisor now, years ago. So it's a great pipeline. At Cape Fear, we have our industrial commercial electricians program has grown, our 4-year program, from 12 to 52 students. All 52 are employed. We're trying to attract them in from high school, but we're pulling folks all in, and the scholarship that the apprenticeship division has been very helpful in paying the salaries of those. We are about to start another apprenticeship with an automotive technician group. We've got 4 or 5 employers that will form in, and that's going in all across the state. There are many of those throughout the state of North Carolina in the 58 colleges. We also use pre-apprenticeship for our electrical lineman program. So that concept is adapted to just about any training program you've got, but you've got to have the employers that are willing to apprentice these folks, and if we can attract them at a high school level and give them a start, it's a way to pipeline them right on in.
But, so could you talk about your interest? Are you willing to begin to work with high school students, or do you see that as an issue or a problem?
Well, it can be a little bit of a problem because you have to be 18 to be able to work in our shops, so that poses a little bit of an issue there. But we do have our own in-house apprenticeship that we do every year. In fact, it starts in March. It'll go for 6 months. So we do our own in-house training where the apprenticeship comes in handy, for example, with Wait Tech and their heat program. Those students, they don't have class in the summertime, so they need internships, which counts towards their graduation credit hours. So we'll have those kids come work with us over the summer. We'll handle, get as many as we can, but that's about the extent of it. I can foresee us growing. Would love to see our apprenticeship program grow and have more people in there. Some things I know you may be aware that the military, the National Guard, they have some journeyman programs out there that we've looked into. In some cases where they'll actually pay half of the technician's salary for the year just to help them get on board. So there's a lot of different things out there, which in itself can be a little overwhelming sometimes, but the more the merrier. Durham, I would love to do something with you guys.
Well, mine's just a comment, because I think Commissioner Rackow asked the question I was going to ask, but I wanted to put some context around it. So I'm Steve Rao. I serve on the City Council in Morrisville, but I'm also a senior executive for a global technology company headquartered in Raleigh, Alphanumeric Systems. And so in my role in my career, I've seen the fastest disruption in technology that I've ever seen. I mean, it's come to a point where if I don't take my training every week in terms of the technologies we're incorporating into our services like AI, machine learning, the Internet of Things, robotic process automation, we simply just can't put our salespeople out in the field. So our customers are seeing that. And so my question is, I guess the context is, as I look at the technician job, and I guess the question is sort of in the story. I recently visited in Morrisville a global company called Shunk, and we were there with Secretary Copeland of our Commerce Department and the leaders of the state. And it's completely automated robotic manufacturing. So, but the technicians on the floor, some of them have actually been 18-year-olds that went through the apprentice program. There was one 18-year-old there that makes $120,000 a year. And he operates the software that runs the robot, that manufactures the gear that they sell all over the world. And so as we talk about disruption, I'm very curious as to how you all are going to keep up in the industry in terms of, that's the challenge, is the roles of the jobs are changing very fast. The technology is going to have a profound impact on that. And what we're having, my biggest problem as an executive in business is finding the people with the skills, even to support our own customers. but my clients are having the same problem. So I just was curious as to where you think about how do we respond to this disruption that's occurring. I mean, we heard it yesterday, right? I mean, so anyway, what's your thought on that?
So in that regards, on the factory side of things, yes, that's the big disruption. It doesn't have as much as a human touch, but I don't foresee there being an issue in what we do. I don't think you can get around. A machine is not going to be able to go on site. A machine is not going to be able to go and do a diagnostic or climb up underneath a piece of equipment or on top of it. So in that regards, where I do see it being a problem is some of the technology that Caterpillar has come out with. I've seen they have pieces of equipment that can be remote controlled. I've seen some dozers where they can actually take the cab off. It can literally lift the cab off of it, especially in dangerous situations like in rock quarries or anything of that nature where the piece of equipment could fall. And then the operator can do it remotely. So going back to what we said about, I was mentioning NASA and the moon and stuff, I mean, they're sending stuff up there that they can do remotely. So in that regards, as far as the other side of the spectrum, yeah, I think it's changing a lot as far as what we do.
I think this apprenticeship with NCDOT, so that's the one that this company works with community colleges, and so we're ready to go in for that. So.
Well, it's funny you said that because Caterpillar has a very similar program. There's 2 CAT plants here in North Carolina. We're very fortunate to have such a heavy CAT presence here. But there's one in Clayton and there's one in Sanford. The one in Clayton has a program specifically for their high school students. They have to interview for it. They have to go through multiple interviews to get this program. And they get them as early as juniors and seniors in high school. So it's an awesome program. I don't know if they do that in Sanford, but it's very similar to what you're talking about.
Sure. One of the ways that we try to keep abreast of the changes in technology is through advisory boards in the various areas of the colleges across the state of North Carolina. An advisory board is very critical for any community college that wants to stay abreast of changes because we ask questions about what is coming in, what are you seeing, what additional skill sets, so that we can tweak our instructional programs to give you the product that you need. And that's how they do it, to try to stay on board. And if there's technology that we simply can't afford, we look for partnerships to try to figure out how we can bring that technology in and use that to teach.
So Walt, I think I heard you say you're recruiting internationally. I guess I heard that. And how is that working with the current immigration policies or limitations?
Not great. I've had some that we've had come on board, and then they were able to stay with us for a few years, and then I guess, don't quote me on this, but I don't know if their green card would expire and they couldn't stay. And these were our technicians, and these were some really talented technicians, and there was nothing we could do. We did everything possible to try to work with them and try to keep them, and it just hasn't worked out. In the 2 times that I've dealt with it, we lost some really good technicians.
Sorry, I have a question. My name is Julio, Gasoline NPO. And I believe from 1999 to 2010, the Hispanic population in North Carolina increased by 700,000. So do you guys have any programs, or are you guys thinking of targeting specific demographics and also young demographics in that Eastern Carolina area? We arrive, to this country through different ways. Most of us are born here, and so we already have some skills that you guys don't have to train, like bilingual skills that maybe you guys can export the skills somewhere. But do you guys have any programs in high schools or in specific areas of Eastern Carolina for the Hispanic population?
Do you?
I believe I can safely say that in the state there are programs that are targeting Hispanic students. Regionally, we have a few very base level when we can get an Hispanic instructor or bilingual instructor to teach folks, to get them, at least from the basic skills up to the point where they're ready to go into school. It's an area that we need to focus more on and look at what we can do. But I could not give you any numbers off the top of my head right now.
As far as not having a specific program, no, we don't. As far as being diverse and our diversity issues that we work with, yes. I mean, there needs to be more, not just that, but women. Our industry has a bad reputation sometimes for being a good old boy network. You may or may not have heard that, but that's sometimes the way we're looked at. And that has been one of the things I was charged with when I started with the company, was really getting us away from that. Let's be more diverse. I've been able to, actually I was able to get the first female in the Think Big program. She worked out great. We currently only have 2 females working at Gregory Pool as technicians. It's not from lack of trying. It's just they're just not out there, and we don't have a lot in school programs, so I'm not real sure. But as far as diversity goes, from gender to ethnicity or whatever the case is, yeah, we do everything we can.
Any other questions around here? Yeah, please.
Hi there, I'm E.T. Mitchell. I'm a commissioner from Craven County, and I'm in the unique position of I've finally gotten my youngest. He's a double E. He is educated and employed. Okay, but I'm a little bit more in touch, I think, with that age group. And, you know, when I look around this room, either we all have gray in our hair or we're using hair color. Okay, and in any process, there are gateways that you've got to transition, you know, from recruiting to training to retaining, and either they work or they don't. And I think one of the issues that we have that we are missing is we are talking about all these high-level programs, all these websites, all these apprenticeships, all these boards. Has anybody ever gotten online and tried to navigate them? Good luck to you. Okay, remember what it was like to be 17, 18, and 19, not a super kid, an average kid. And I think that takes a much more proactive effort to recruit, to would you be interested in it? And, you know, the military's always done this. They get down one-on-one, what do you personally want to do, Jane or Joe average? And I think a lot of industries need to do that very proactively with it, because it's a lot to wade through. It is very intimidating. There's a lot of information, and I think in terms of bringing new people into the industry, I'm sorry if I'm 18 and somebody tells me you can make $42,000 a year in 2 years, I'm gonna go for it. Okay, but where is that information in the public sector? And I think that is something that all of us in industries, in government, in community colleges, need to keep aware of. It is not enough to say, well, we'll give it to the high school guidance counselors. It's not working. And I think in terms of recruiting and training, we need to start looking at where are the problems and how do we fix them. But frankly, I think some of the issues in terms of bringing people into the industries is we've got to know how to reach, I'm gonna call them older adolescents, and target that specific problem, because it is hard to navigate, because just for grins, I tried it, and I'm 60 and I had difficulty. So that's just a comment for everybody in the industry.
I want to comment on that. I have to. One of my most successful programs in that regional area where I'm from, we had a problem with their website. So I had a 23-year-old. I turned this lady loose on it. She streamlined the program. And we have capacity enrollment every time. And we had comments from parents. We had comments from students saying, hey, whatever you did to the website, it worked because it flows. And it hyperlinks to other websites that gives you the information you want. And if there's information, you know, relating to lodging, connected that. And that was done by a very young employee that we just got from UNCW a couple years ago, and I'm glad we hired that person. But that and geofencing, where, you know, you just geofence an area and it comes up on their phones, because a lot of the young people don't read boards and they don't go to websites as much, but they hit that phone in a regular manner, and if it pops up, hey, we've got this class over here, then they get interested. So, you know, things like that are things that we're learning. and we're seeing what works, and it's increased enrollment substantially in a few of the programs that we have. And like you said, you had to get out of that mentality, because a lot of the older people were thinking it has to be structured this way, and it just got too much to navigate. And so by streamlining it, you can do that. So one things that I did internally with my area is to turn that person loose and let them critique the other websites that we have, so that our other programs are a little less convoluted and that you can get there. And it's increased our enrollment. I think we were up 49% this semester. So that's one of the ways that we were doing that. But good point, and it's a very accurate point. And some people across the state are a little slower at it than others. So thank you for that statement and that question.
So I'll just talk loud. I keep hearing someone say junior and senior in high school, and I own my own construction company. Thank you. I have worked in construction since I was an intern in college, and fortunately I don't have gray in my hair yet. But I've worked in recruiting, I've worked in project business management before I owned my own company. It's too late if they're a junior in high school. They've already been looking at colleges. Their parents have been telling them for years, you should go to college, you should do this. We have to start earlier. And I think that's like a challenge for people, is figuring out how to get kids in late elementary, just like knowing what their options are. Middle school, because by the time you're talking to a junior, they're already looking at colleges, in-state, out-of-state, and they're applying end of junior year, beginning of senior year. So just something, as she was saying, to talk, for the industry about, which is a great point too, the kids who aren't, how do we get in touch with them? But that's not enough for all these trade positions. I had never even thought about technicians. For me, it's heavy equipment operators. It's hard to get kids interested in coming into the heavy civil world in that role. I know electricians, plumbers, HVAC. There's such a need in the trades, and we have to figure out a way to get the kids earlier. So that was just a comment on kind of, I just keep hearing junior and senior in high school, and I think it needs to be earlier than that. So anyone with ideas, please share with me too.
That is something we get a lot of as low as elementary schools. At some point, you just have to draw a line in terms of where you can go, how many places you can actually meet, how many people you can go talk to. But we just had, for example, I think it was about a month ago at Johnston Community College, they had an event where it was pretty much all middle school kids came to the campus for 2 days. And then we were set up, Caterpillar was there, as well as a lot of other different companies. And we were in the parking lot. It was cold, but the kids were still walking around, and the equipment was there, and they got a chance to touch it and take pictures with it and interact with the different people. Some of the technology things that we were talking about earlier, there was a forklift company there that had had the goggles. You can actually put on the goggles and pretend you're operating the equipment, and some really cool things. So you're right. Getting them that early age. The high school, one of the problems, and these are personal things that I'm, over the past 13 years that I've run into, that I see, so this is not necessarily accurate. But with the high schools, the problem I run into sometimes is the turnover as far as teachers. You don't get a chance to have a rapport with them. You get a chance to know them. They're there for a year in some cases, and they're gone. And then you got to start the process all over again. I've never been a real big fan of career fairs. For me, it's trick or treating most of the time. They're walking around and they have bags and they get candy and pens and stuff. And I'm sure some of them may see something they're interested in. I'm more in favor of going and specifically sitting down with the classes. I love the teachers and the guidance counselors who find the students who are interested. And though it may only be 10 students, and I'll go into their office or to a classroom. I do a lot with the FFA. They'll have me come in at night after hours and sit down with the kids, because a lot of times the students just don't want to ask anything in class or these career fairs because it's just not cool. They don't want to talk about their future. And to be honest, some of them, if it's on a Thursday or Friday, they're thinking the same thing that at least I was thinking when I was in high school, what am I doing this weekend? I'm not thinking about my career. So, but when you can get one-on-one with them, that's the key. That's where you bridge that gap. I like to spend more time with high schoolers than, say, middle school and elementary. No, somebody should. It's just for us to do what we do and hit just the high schools alone and do our other job as well, it's almost impossible. But they do, and the kids in some regards, not to keep going on the subject, but it's sad because there's different schools that go to these high schools that recruit these kids to go. Lincoln Tech, ATI, UTI, and these schools for 18 months, it costs around $40,000 for these kids to go to school. Okay, where they could go to Cape Fear, or they could go to Wake Tech, or they could come to our Think Big program, which is only $18,000 in tuition, which, by the way, we pay 100% of that. But they don't know any better because lack of information, lack of communication. I don't know what else we can do, but we have looked into different things as far as advertising and putting things out there, and what he was talking about, geocaching, and they're very expensive, very expensive. So the kind of marketing budget you need to really reach all those students is just phenomenal. We have looked into it. So that's why we're doing getting a car and drive and talk to them in person. But you brought up some really good points, though.
We have college career or counselors or that go out into the high schools, and they're going out into the middle schools now, along with the industry groups, hand in hand, to promote certain programs and to talk about how working for one of these companies might be. And that's a win-win deal. You know, when we can get somebody in front of them that actually employs them and that will invite them to come out, I think that's a strong message to any of those folks that want to work. And in some cases, some of these kids that are coming through, they don't have the financial means to go to school. They want to go to work. So if we can modify our training, I'm seeing this trend across the state, is that they're looking at short-term training programs that are blended to the 2-year degree program, so that they can take these short-term programs either at night or during a short-term period and immediately go to work, and then they can go back to school at night and finish their degree if they so choose. You know, once they get started making income and they realize a promotion may be in hand if they can get the additional skill set. So a lot of the colleges are offering more training at night so that the folks that are underemployed can work, get a paycheck, and then do that. And then for those that are lucky enough to find an apprenticeship that fits their needs, they can work and go to school in the evenings and then earn as they learn. Thanks.
Was that one more?
Yes, one more.
Please. Yeah.
Hi. So to piggyback off of the marketing conversation, I know that is a big thing. So with your communications departments, are you hiring younger students or college graduates to reach who you are trying to reach?
I think I hear you. Yes. As far as bringing in new talent that speaks that language, yes, definitely. We definitely. And it's still not enough. So the problem with them as well, though, and I'm not trying to blame the millennials. I know we like to blame the millennials for everything, but is when you get somebody that talented on board, is keeping them to keep doing that process. But yes, new talent. We got to.
I can speak to it. You know, we're hiring folks in the same market pool that you guys are. So when we hire somebody in the community college system, there's an awful lot of pressure, and while the experienced folks are going to other places. So what we're getting is more younger, recent graduates and surprisingly, this skill set is there. The person I told you I hired recently had a marketing background from UNCW. Best move we've made, and I'm seeing that across the colleges. We're bringing folks like that into our marketing departments, and the skill sets they bring are amazing to attract the students that we need. So, yeah, definitely a market for the younger folks. The work is out there across the board. Thanks.
Gentlemen, we could go on for a lot longer. It's straight up 12 noon, so we have a hard stop at noon. One of the questions I wanted to ask, and maybe next time we'll get to it, is just, how are you planning 3, 5, 7, 8 years out for some of the disruptive elements of what we've heard yesterday? I know in our space we're planning for a lot different mix of what we sell and how that's going to be relevant to our technician base in the automotive space. But thank you, John and Walt. We really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your insights, and let's give them a round of applause. So.